What is up? This season I decided to do a Diamond 1 climb with Mathmech. At the beginning of this month, Konami decided to release a new pack, or update really an existing secret pack and add some new support cards, including Sky Striker Linkage, but also surprisingly Mathmech Circular, which I didn't expect to come to the game for a couple more releases because, at least if we're looking at the TCG sets, uh, Circular came out in Power of the Elements, which came out quite a bit later than what we already have in the game. But it was a pleasant surprise, I guess, because Circular is a massive boost to the strategy. It can't really be overstated how powerful that card is for the Mathemech strategy, and single-handedly made the deck from trash tier to probably tier 1, if not the best deck in the entire game. And without further ado, let's get into the deck list. I played a clean 40 cards to try to get a high level of consistency. One of the strengths of this deck is that Circular is a one-card starter, so seeing him in your opening hand plus several other hand traps is very nice. So having those kinds of ratios that you see in the deck is pretty good in assuring that you see Circular enough, but also see hand traps so you don't lose going second. So let's go into the Mathbook monsters first. The new card Circular. This card is just crazy. If he's in your hand, you can send one Mathmech monster from your deck to the graveyard for cost to special summon him from your hand. It does have a restriction that you can only attack with one monster for the rest of this turn, which is perfectly fine, as I will discuss later. And then it has another effect. If a Mathmech monster is normal or special summoned to your field while you control this monster, you can add a Mathmech spell trap from your deck to your hand. So you use this to search either Equation or Superfactorial. So the one card play is basically you activate Circular and send Sigma. Sigma can just special summon himself if you have no monsters in the extra monster zone, and then you can use that to search with Circular. You can search Superfactorial, and then you'll see in the replay what exactly happens. But yeah, 3 Circular, you want to see him in your opening hand every game. And then 3 Diameter, he is the best normal summon in the deck. So if he's normal summoned, you can target a level 4 Cybers in your graveyard and special summon it. For some reason, you are able to target a copy of himself, which is cool. Doesn't come up that often, but it's just good to know. It does have a restriction that you cannot activate its effects, so be careful if you're summoning Circular. You won't be able to use Circular's other effect, but that's fine. It does have another very powerful effect. If he's used as Xyz material or Synchro material for a Mathmech monster, it gets an Omni Negate for that turn. So basically the wording is that during the turn this card was special summoned, this card being whatever you Xyz or Synchro summon using this as material with, it gets an Omni Negate. And your opponent activates a card effect, you can negate that effect. Yeah, it's pretty self-explanatory. It's very good. And then for extenders, we have... Oh yeah, sorry. I should also mention that he is a tuner. So some of these Mathmechs are tuners, some of them are non-tuners. Circular is a non-tuner, Diameter is a tuner. And then next we have Sigma, who is a tuner. If you have no monsters in your extra monster zone, you can special summon it from your hand, but banish it when it leaves the field. And it locks you into Cybers monsters. Another card that is good to see in your opening hand, but he functions well off of a discard for Silent Mining, since you can activate in the hand or graveyard. It can also be sent by Circular. It's very good. And the fact that it gets banished when he leaves the field, you can get around that by using him as Xyz material, because by game mechanics it'll just go to the grave, as it's considered to not be leaving the field. And for extenders, we have Subtraction. This one's simple. You can just target any monster on the field, even your opponent's monsters. Special summon this card, and then the targeted monster loses 1,000 attack. By the way, based on how problem-solving card text works, it doesn't matter if that monster leaves the field. So if you target a monster, and that monster leaves the field, there's still special summons because of how the end if you do clause works. So that is great. Same with addition, same thing. Both of these lock you into Cybers, but that is perfectly fine. We're only playing Cybers, really. Yeah, and it is level 4. Both of these level 4, they're both Cybers. Subtraction will reduce attack, addition will add attack, and both of them are non-tuners. But they are also fire, which is relevant for Small World. Then we have Multiplication. I think this card, not every list plays this, but I think it's actually very nice. This card comboed with Final Sugma. Final Sigma, but enables for really easy OTKs. So I think this card is good to play. It doubles the attack of any Cyberse monster you control in the extra monster zone when it's sent to the graveyard. So you can use this with the Final Sigma to make a big 6,000 attack monster that hits for double battle damage, or you can do it with access code to enable OTKs. So I think it's good to play. Nabla, this card is okay. You definitely don't have to play this one. I would maybe consider cutting it, but he can tribute himself, or he can tribute any Cyberse monster to special summon a Mathmech from the deck. So it is nice. Like if you don't have access to Diameter, for example, and you want to get him into rotation, Nabla does allow you to do that. But you don't have to play this card. Then I think we can go into the consistency cards. 3 sign-up mining, of course. That's not really up for debate. 3 Small World. This card, if you have never used it before, can be a bit confusing, but once you start using it in Master Duel, you get a hang of how it works. But it basically allows you to go from either hand traps into any of your starters, or from one of your starters into a hand trap. So it is very powerful. Can be a little bricky, but I still think it's worth playing 3 because of how many monsters you're playing in the deck. It's just a very good card. For the Mathmech spell and traps, I already mentioned Equation is a reborn. It's just it's a nice extender that allows you to push for lethal and allows you to play through interruptions. So I think it's mandatory as a one-of. Super Factorial. This is like the key playmaker, the deck that you want to set up. It's like Tri-Brigade Revolts / Trishula rolled into one card. It's just really good. Some people play 2 of this, but I think it's a bit bricky because it only does something if you're already able to play, and you have 2 ways of searching it with him and him. So I think just playing 1 of it is perfectly fine. Maybe if you're playing Pot of Desires, you would want to play 2 of it. But yeah, basically it just allows you to Xyz summon or Synchro summon, but you're definitely going to be Xyz summoning with it 99% of the time. And going into Laplacian, which allows you to disrupt your opponent during their turn and set up an Omni Negate. Super Factorial is very good. And yeah, that's it for the Mathmech cards. Then for the staples, we have the Maxi Tax, I guess. 3 Maxi, 3 Ash, 2 Called By. Still mandatory. The nice thing with this is you can actually Small World to go into Ash, which is something that I actually found myself doing quite a bit. Like, for example, you can use one of your light monsters that you don't need if you have like an extra one. You can bridge using Veiler, and then use that to go into Ash. Yeah. Then we have 3 Veiler. Yeah, 3 Veiler I think is mandatory as well. Obviously, it's better to draw than Imperm if you resolve Maxi. So yeah, it's just good. And of course, it's a Small World bridge since it is a light, just like circular in diameter, and Sigma for that matter. 3 Gamma, this is something that I added in a little bit later on into the season, but I'm very glad that I did. It is actually extremely good in this deck. Not only is it like a very high impact hand trap going second, but it's also a Small World bridge that functions better than some of the other ones because of the 1000 attack. I believe it bridges with, yeah, the addition and subtraction. And also it allows you to get rid of negate Maxi during your own turn. So if you resolve, like if you activate Circulate, since it activates in the hand, your opponent chains Maxi. Not everybody plays around Gamma, so you just Gamma, and you get plus an additional body. Allows you to get like Heat Soul on top of your IP and your end port. So I highly recommend playing Gamma. I've not always been the biggest fan of this card because you draw drivers sometimes, which is annoying, but I think it's still good enough to run, especially in the Master Duel meta. In the final 2 hand traps, we have Nibiru. I found myself playing not against that many Runics, but against a lot of other Mathmech players, and just Adamancipator, other combo decks. So Nibiru is good to have. I don't think you need to really play 3 of it because I mean you can always draw into it with Maxi, and of course it is also a Small World bridge since it is light and it doesn't really share anything else with any of the other monsters. You can use it as a bridge into any of your Mathmechs. Then we have 1 copy of Harpy's Feather Duster because you never know what you're going to run into on the best of 1 ladder. I always pretty much play Harpies. That's for the main deck. Let's move on to the extra deck. So our key playmaker is Alan Bershin. I just play 2 of it. I don't think 3 comes up very often, but basically what he allows you to do is if he's Xyz summoned, you just need, technically it's generic, you can use just level 4 monsters, but obviously it's easiest to make with Mathmechs. If you use 2 materials, you can add 1 Mathmech card from your deck to your hand. It's the only card that can search any card in your archetype, so he's very good, obviously. If you detach 3, you can add 1 level 4 monster from your deck to your hand. I don't think I ever used this effect. I don't think you were ever going to need to use that in this deck, but I did use the 4th effect one time, which is very powerful if you are able to use it, but really you only use this if you're like very ahead. If you detach 4 materials from it, you can add any spell / trap from your deck to your hand. It's very rare that you're going to be able to use it, or that you would even want to use it, but it's just good to know that you can. Yeah, I think the time that I used it was to search Called by the Grave, because my opponent had snow in the graveyard, and it allowed me to OTK through that, so it's just something to note. But yeah, 99% of the time you're going to use the first effect, add 1 Mathmech card from your deck to your hand. And the other thing to note is that with Super Factorial, you're targeting 3 Mathmech monsters in your graveyard to special summon and then Xyz. You want to go into Laplacian, of course, but sometimes your opponent's going to have Called by the Grave. They're probably going to Call by the Diameter so that you don't get the negate. So you'll still be able to Xyz into Alumbration and get the search, at least. So you still get something. Obviously, it's not as good as getting Laplacian, but, you know, it's nice. I definitely play at least 2 of this. Laplacian, I only play 1. Some people play 2 of this, but I don't find 2 really ever coming up. But basically, if he's Xyz summoned, you can detach. You need to use 3 level 4 monsters for it. Unfortunately, you cannot make this with 2 level 4s, which would make it even better, but it is what it is. I guess that makes it more balanced. But yeah, if you detach up to 3 materials and then apply each of these effects, depending on how many of materials you attached or detached, send 1 random card from your opponent's hand to the graveyard, send 1 monster your opponent controls to the graveyard, and send 1 spell / trap your opponent controls to the graveyard. So it's like basically a Trishula kind of effect, non-targeting sends, so it gets around like Runic Fountain. It's very powerful, of course, and yeah, this is typically what you want to make during your opponent's turn using Super Factorial. And if you make him with Diameter, of course, he gets the Omni Negate for the rest of the turn on top of that. But yeah, Laplacian is really good. Sometimes you will want to make him, like if you're going second, you might want to make him, like hard summon him on your turn to like force out your opponent's interruptions and just deal with like their back row with whatever they have. But usually you make him during your opponent's turn. And then the other Mathmech card we have is Final Sigma. I honestly think this card is mandatory. I know not everybody plays it, but it allows you to like OTK under Maxi in cases where it would not be otherwise possible. Because like if you're going for access code update jammer plays, obviously that's going to be how you're OTKing most of the time, but it loses to like pretty hard to like Valor or Nibiru, whereas Final Sigma does not, and it allows you to just like steal wins like out of nowhere. It came up quite often for me, I would say. So I think you should probably play Final Sigma. Yeah, so while he's in the monster zone, the extra monster zone, sorry, he's unaffected by all card effects except Mathmech cards. And the other effect is if he battles an opponent's monster, it inflicts double battle damage. So if he is made using multiplication, he goes to 6,000 attack. So if he attacks anything with 2,000 or less attack, it's a one-shot. It just attacks for 8,000 plus damage. And you just win like that. And yeah, which is nice. Then it has the other effect. If it's destroyed by an opponent's card effect or by battle, you can add any Mathmech card from your deck to your hand. I guess, yeah, this card can also technically search any card in the archetype, but you're not going to get that effect very often. We have Link Disciple and Link Devotee. Again, technically optional slots, but it allows you to one-card combo with Circular, so I do think that it's worth having these 2 in the extra deck. What they do is like you'll just see in the videos, or sorry, in the replays what they do, but they allow you to summon more tokens, allow you to climb into Cyber's Wicked, and then Link Climb. Devotee does lock you into Link 2 or lower monsters for the rest of the turn, so just be careful with that. On turn 1, it doesn't really matter. Lingaribo is very nice. It just needs a 1 level 4 or Cyber's 1 level 4 or lower Cyber's monster. It is a trap negate, which is cool. It plays around evenly, Imperm, and some other stuff. And then it also allows you to out the ability lock, which some people run on ladder, and you just link off the ability with just this. It's just great. The other effect you're not going to use unless you're, I guess, playing the Ad Ignister version. Cyber's Wicked. This card, if it's link summoned, it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, which is cool. But if a monster is special summoned to a zone that it points to, you can banish the Cyber's monster from your graveyard and add the Cyber's Tuner from your deck to your hand. So being able to search Diameter is great for follow-up. You can also search Sigma, of course, if you already have Diameter. But yeah, you typically want to do that on turn 1 if you can, to guarantee that you have OTK next turn. Update Jammer plus access code, obviously. It's a Cyber's deck, what do you expect? IP, you're going to want to try to make turn 1. Some people play Nightmare Unicorn, but I didn't really find space for that. So IP into Appaloosa during your opponent's turn. You can't really ever make Appaloosa on your first turn because a lot of your cards lock you into Cybers, but you can do it on your opponent's turn. Splash Mage is obviously mandatory. Transcode as well. Deco Tucker, Heat Soul. You don't have to play this card as well. You're not going to make it that often, but I find that it is like pretty clutch since you play so many hand traps in this deck that being able to draw into them, like, it's basically Pot of Greed. You can use them during your turn, and then during your opponent's draw phase, you can use them again. It's Pot of Greed. Like, it's just nice. One thing to note with this card is that you cannot craft it for some stupid reason. You have to buy the Solomon Great Structure deck, which is just 500 gems. If you don't want to play it, you can play Nightmare Unicorn, I guess. But yeah, I think he's pretty good. And that's it for the main and extra deck. I'll just hop into some replays. First, we have the Mathmech 1-card combo. So we start with Circular to Foolish Sigma for cost and special summon himself. Then we go Sigma to special summon since we have nothing in the extra monster zone. Circular searches Super Factorial. If you're going second, you may want to search the Reborn to help push for lethal better, but it's going first. Alimbertion, search. Search Diameter, normal summon Diameter since we have not normal summoned yet. Reborn one of them. Go into Link Disciple, and then Link Devotee. Here, depending on if you have another extender, you can use Disciple's effect to draw one and put another card back, but in this case, let's say we don't have any other names. We go Alimbertion, tribute the Disciple to special summon another. This will give you an extra body. And Devotee search summons 2. Go into Wicked. Go into IP. Wicked, banish the Alimbertion because we want to have more attributes engraved for access code. Then we go Linkaribo. Set 1. I mean, you don't have to make Linkaribo, but to play around evenly, it's nice. You pass turn. During your opponent's turn, they do stuff. Use Super Factorial. You summon, make sure you summon Diameter as one of them, so you get the negate. Special 3, and it immediately goes into Laplacian, and you activate, detach however many you need to, and send up to 3 cards to graveyard, and then you have the negate on top of that. And then you can also use IP to go into Appaloosa. That's a lot off of 1 card. For the first actual replay, we have one going first against Despia. So we're going first. This hand is very nice. So you have Circular plus an Extender plus Small World. So in this case, I am activating Circular first to see if they max CB, in which case I can Gamma, and I'm very far ahead. You did not Gamma, so they did not max C. So I'm just going to Small World away the Gamma. So you can use Addition as a bridge since it has 1000 attack and shares nothing else with Gamma. And then I can add Ash. So if they don't max C, if they don't chain max C to Small World, I can search Ash, which is awesome. And now they cannot max C anymore. So that's another reason why Small World is so good. So I use Sigma. He has Ghost Spell, which I didn't really expect, but I can't do anything about that. Then we use Subtraction. It's another extender. Basically does the same thing as Sigma in this case. So I can search Super Factorial. Then I go into Alimbertion. Attempt to search Diameter so I can get the negate, but he has Imperm, which is fine. I still have Super Factorial plus 2 hand traps. So I said 2, he has 3 cards in hand. He's still not in a good position. He goes Albion, okay, now I know what I'm playing against, so I'm just going to hold the Ash for now. Just trying to bait the Ash. Not biting on that. He knows I have it, so since I searched it off of Small World. He has Aliber. I'm not going to ash that either, but I am going to Veiler it. He has Called By, which is fine. Okay, buddy. Searches Brandon Red. He knows Brandon Fusion's going to get ashed, so he goes Brandon Red. He's already used Tragedy's effect, so I know he's going to go into Chimera. I probably have to ash this, unfortunately. If he has Brandon Fusion as the last card, I can still Super Factorial, and I should still be okay, potentially. But, Ash on Guardian Chimera is nice. And he scoops. Easy. Here we are going second against Cybers / Mathmech / Code Talker. So he starts with Circular. I have all gas here, which is good, I guess. But no hand traps, unfortunately. He plays Small Road. He goes into Ibly. Fine with me. Go ahead. I play Lingaribo. Nice Royal Rare, though. Goes into Heat Soul, plus Ibly Luck, plus Super Factorial Pass, which is pretty good. Gonna be tough to beat. Pause. Okay, so then I start with Lingaribo. Turns off both both the Ibly Lock and Super Factorial. So I go Small World, he ashes it. So he has Ash on top of that. I'm guessing he probably drew into it with Heat Soul. Go Sign Up Binding, discard Sigma since it's a free discard. He's gonna Veiler the Lingaribo so that he can use Super Factorial later. Makes sense. So I'm gonna go Subtraction. Gonna hit the Heat Soul, doesn't matter which one I target. Then go Splash Mage. So I'm gonna put it in this zone because I want to leave this zone open for reasons that you are about to see. Now we go Super Factorial. Okay, then Laplacian. You can only do 2 since I don't have any spells and traps on the field, but that doesn't really matter. He hits the Circular, unfortunately for me, but I'm still able to play. He does have the Negate. He uses it on Sigma. I'm guessing he doesn't want me to start link climbing into Access Code Talker. Not necessarily the correct play, but it's fine. It's not terrible either. So now I go into Alimbertian. And I have a Negate now since I used Diameter. Now I have Circular, since he sniped mine. Now I go Alimbertian. I have to do this to push for lethal, unfortunately. Now I grab the Reborn, so I don't have the Negate. I have to risk it, because I'm going to lose next turn if I don't. So I summon back the Diameter. I'm just trying to bait a Veiler here. I don't need to do that, but basically what I'm going to do is summon Final Sigma, double his attack to 6,000, and attack for a one-shot. That's why you play Final Sigma. Now we're going second into Mr. Mathmech. You're going to play a lot of mirror matches, or at least against other Cybers decks, even if they're slightly different variants. So it's probably good to show that off. Against most other decks, it's like straightforward, but yeah. Here you have to play around the stuff that you know. Here, I mean, I know about Ignister since I played it in one of my previous seasons, so I know how to... I know that you're supposed to hit the Dark Templar. That's the highest impact. But you will see. I'm not sure how I feel about playing Ignisters with the Mathmechs, because you're taking up space that you could have for hand traps. So I don't know that it's necessary, but it's something to try. Here I'm kind of forced to hit the Transcode Talker since he makes it early. I didn't expect him to make it on turn 1, but it's fine. So he goes Templar. I mean, he still had the Call By regardless. Very skilled. Sorry, the cross out. Then he goes into Wind Pegasus. It's good to set up on turn 1, so if I destroy any of his stuff, he can spin it back. So you have to be careful about that. Remember what this card does. It has a graveyard effect. So now he starts a Circular. He starts doing Mathmech plays. And he's going to set up a rival and try to get Super Factorial into rotation, but he doesn't have a way of getting to Diameter, fortunately. Or he does. You can search it, but he can't get it in the grave. At least not that I could see. So he goes into Arrival. Searches Kachiri, end phase. This looks tough. It's going to be hard to beat this, obviously. But just be aware of what your opponent has. He has Wind Pegasus and Graveyard. He has 2 names for Super Factorial, so it's not super threatening. Circular Send Sigma, of course. I'm going to start with that. And then he searches, I search the equation. And then I go into Final Sigma straight out of the gate. Because there's really nothing you can do to stop this. Let's see how it's called by. So, I double his attack. I'm sorry, there is something you can do to stop it, but... yeah, I forgot about Chi-Chi's Graveyard effect, but it's fine. It just buys him a turn. Yeah, by the way, since this triggers during damage step, you don't get to redeclare. So now I'm just going to set up as much as I can to disrupt him, since I was not able to OTK. It is very important to realize, like, just to pay attention when you are able to OTK versus when you're not able to. And plan accordingly. So he searches a Chi-Chi. Okay, so we're all fine. I'm just gonna wait till he goes into access code or something that forces out my Super Factorial. So this does force it out kind of because of Kachiri. It makes his monsters unaffected if it goes to grave. So I'm just going to get rid of the update jammer now. I know he's already burned through transcode. It's not going to be easy for him to do it again. Not through one negate at least. Oh, also, one thing to note is that Laplacian has another effect. So I only detached 2 here because it has the other effect. So if it would be... sorry, where does it show it? There it is. Okay, yeah, it's not highlighted. But if a Mathmech card you control would be destroyed by a card effect, you can detach 1 material from this card instead. Since a rival can pop my monsters, I can detach to protect. Oh, it also... Oh yeah, I think I forgot that Wicked also protects it from being destroyed by card effects. But yeah, in case you don't have this here, just note that the Laplacian can protect himself from being destroyed by card effect. Or any Mathmech card. So I go in diameter first. Wicked allows me to search again. This card puts in work when it sticks around, because it is a little hard to get rid of since it can't be destroyed by battle or card effects. All impression. Now I have a negate. Traction, doesn't matter. Gonna link it off. Into transcode. Big Black Wicked. Tribute himself. Again, I have to do this to push for lethal. Then we go access code talker. Multiplication chainlink 1, access code chainlink 2. So access code gains the attack first, and then multiplication doubles his attack, so it goes to 10,000. And Chi-Chi tries to protect, but Rebel is unaffected, so I just attack for lethal. GG. Next we have yet another Mathmech game. This one is probably one of the best games that I had this season. It was pretty wild. So I don't start with circular, unfortunately, but I do have diameter plus 2 extenders, so that is fine. Still works. So we go All Immersion. I have the negate. Search circular. Go a little fast through this. Then go Sigma. Search Super Factorial. Unfortunately, Sigma is going to have to get banished in this case. Summon back 2. Summon back 1, and then summon 2 tokens. Wicked. Link Rebo again. I didn't activate Wicked because I want to banish this guy and keep the other links in grave. Search diameter again for follow-up. Set call by set Super Factorial. This is pretty good. 3 material Appaloosa plus Super Factorial plus the Omni Negate plus call by plus Veiler plus L plus ratio. What is he gonna do? Okay, so he goes small world. He has to go into circular. So here I'm gonna go into IP. If he had like Imperm or something, he would have used it already, obviously. IP negates, and then Veiler negates a circular. So now I'm gonna Super Factorial. He tries to Cosmic my called by. I called by his Sigma, and he called by my Diameter, unfortunately. So I'd have to go into Alimbertion, obviously, because the other one needs 3 materials. So I search Equation. So he makes Alimbertion. I was not aware of this ruling, by the way, so I assumed that he couldn't negate because Diameter was hit with Called By, but apparently this is treated as Alimbertion's effect, the negate, so it still works, so I was a little confused by that, but it's whatever. And unfortunately he draws Parallel Exceed. This is another extender that you can run in this deck, but personally I don't think it's necessary. It takes up 3 spots, and it can be a little bricky. And you still lose to Max C, so I wanted to solve the problem of losing to Max C. Let's go Wicked, IP, makes sense. He searches Diameter for follow-up, so this is pretty bad for me now. Game kind of turned around. Let's go Equation, summon Circular, he goes Super Factorial. Since I banished his Sigma earlier, he only has 2 materials, so he has to go into Alimbertion, but he still has the negate. Oh, he could have actually made this. I just realized he could have made this right here, and then he could have chain blocked it and searched with Wicked. That's a misplay. Now he negates, and then he goes IP into Apo. Okay. I go Subtraction. He negates with Apo. I don't have a way to out the Apo right now, so yeah. I mean, I could go to battle phase, but for some reason I thought that I had OTK, so I was trying to do that. So I didn't want to give him another turn since he has Diameter in hand, and I've already used Super Factorial. So I hard make Laplacian. He tries to negate with Apo, but Apo is once per chain, so I negate the negate. And luckily I hit the Diameter and hit the Apo. Here I'm just racking my brain trying to think about how I can OTK, but I could not find a line. I was running low on time. I go into Heat Soul. I was running low on time, so I didn't click the. I should have just clicked the yes on this. It would have made him 4,600 attack, so I would have done more damage. But oh well. Didn't want to run out of time. The draw phase, I Heat Soul draw into Nibiru, which is pretty clutch. He draws into Circular, which is probably one of his best top decks. Goes Equation, Jammer. Then he goes Transcode Talker. Here I'm just gonna nib. And hope for top deck. Okay, that works. Just kidding, actually it doesn't matter since I had Time Mining. Any card to discard. We go Transcode Talker. Heat Soul draw just in case. He has Nib or something. Luckily he does not. And I pop. And we won the grand game. GG. That's all for today's Mathmech deck profile and replay video. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe. Here's my main account's Master Duel ID. Feel free to follow me. I make all of my replays public. I won't have the Mathmech ones because they were on a different account, but this is where I'm going to have my main content for future decks like Sprite and Tier Limits, which should hopefully be coming up soon. But yeah, thank you.